Hey, it's Robert Beard, the host of the Commercial Landscaper podcast. These podcasts challenge you to grow as a leader, to stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone, and to 10x your company. I really encourage you to enjoy the show, share it with teammates, fellow business owners, and subscribe. That helps us grow our community.
Hi, this is Robert Beard with the Commercial Landscaper podcast. Really excited today to be joined by Angelique Robb. Angelique, good to see you.
Great to see you, Rob. Great to be on too. And you talk so fast. I was like, oh my goodness.
You should understand my accent. Maybe you've left the country for too long.
I've tuned my ears. At first when I came back to the States, I couldn't understand anybody from my hometown and my home state. And then I think you tune your ear differently wherever you are.
100%. To be honest, when I go back home, it will take me a good day or two just to tune in, especially if I go to, deep into Glasgow or maybe up to Aberdeen or something.
Yeah.
But on that note, I love the audience just to know a little bit about you and your background as we tie into the Scotland piece.
I started my career as an engineer in the oil industry, a drilling engineer. I went to LSU, graduated there, went to work offshore. I worked in the Gulf of Mexico, worked on land rigs, ultimately back in the office. I'm not much of an office person. I do like the planning side and running the jobs, but don't like to sit in the office too much. But really, the oil industry or being an engineer wasn't as much about like doing the calculations and it was more about managing talking from a drilling engineer point of view, I was mostly managing the budget, the operations, the scope, the change management, and managing all the stuff that did the specialty job and looking at it from a client perspective to meet the objective. And so when you break it down and look at it like that, it's not any different from a landscape project. I only realized that later on, but when I bought a house in Houston, I started watching these makeover shows, didn't really know anything about landscape design and construction, watching these landscape makeover shows. And I was like, I can do this. So being an engineer, got out my graph paper. That's how long ago it was. My mechanical pencils and
that's awesome.
And drew out, never constructed anything before, a 2-level deck with notch corners and a pergola and built-in seating and a patio and planting, and showed up at Lowe's or Home Depot or something and had this huge list of materials. And they're like, right. I was like, I need all this. And they're like, do you have something to put this in? I'm like, nope, I need it all delivered.
That's great.
That was my first project. And I loved it so much. And during building it, I was like, oh my goodness, I could have done this better. Oh, if I'd planned better, if I just realized the spacing I needed or this, or there were so many things I could have done better, but it just excited me more to do it again. Fast forward, I got moved to Scotland, took a job in Scotland as I wanted to move around. I also happened to be getting a divorce and it seemed like a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Leave the country.
Change of scenery.
Yeah. And went to Aberdeen, and it was like being at university again. Oh my goodness. It was like people from all over, lots of different countries and all in the oil industry, all working hard during the day and going out every night and, a lot of fun. So I kind of forgot about my construction excitement back in Houston for a while. And then it came back. I was like, okay, if I had done that, I would have made the steps like this. I would have, I was like critiquing every place I saw. And I was like, this actually is something I'm really interested in. And I love the plants. I absolutely love them. But I could geek out on construction and transforming it and like visualizing a space to be different than it is. Maybe there's puddles here and there's, and I don't know, it's going green there and, and it's just not a good use of space. So how do we make it feel different? How do we make it a nice transition in a sloped backyard? How do we keep it from getting slippy in the winter? How all these weather problems, these material problems, these slopes. So really started a design and build company. First, I started weeding people's gardens. That was my first, because I was an engineer.
In Aberdeen.
in Aberdeen.
Okay.
So I was working 3 days a week as a drilling engineer and doing, 5 days a week weeding people's gardens.
And just so people understand and get some context, Aberdeen is a beautiful place, but it's pretty far up north of Scotland. It can be pretty cold all year round, so it's pretty tough conditions, correct?
It sometimes gets above 70 in the summer for
Right.
a day or two, you know?
And people take half their clothes off when that sun does come out.
Pretty interesting location to get into the landscape design and build industry. And I feel like, it's that problem solving that I like to do as an engineer that really egged me on to, okay, I did it this way that time and it didn't last as long as it should. Okay, let's try something new. Let's look at, cement grouts and then resin grouts and, going into the, first there was forget what they call it, but like a brush in sand. And
Right.
then the 2-part epoxies and, like looking for things that last was always a big problem because in that climate where it's freeze thaw, you're getting a lot of problems with ice and water everywhere. So really a fascinating time. There is a small part in there where I met the Pro Landscaper magazine group and we were up for a national award, met them, and they said, you should launch our brand in the US. And I was like, that's funny. I don't know anything about magazines, And they're like, you'd be good at it. And so I did originally launch their brand, but only in the Southeast for a year. And then I realized this won't solve enough problems with this brand and with this name because there's a cultural difference in the US versus the UK that landscaper really often in the industry and outside the industry means groundskeeper to too many people. And so what my goal with the publication and event that started as their idea, but became my mission is because I was just licensing their brand. It was my company and licensed. I needed to make a difference. I need to see an impact in the industry. I need to really help people. I can't just have a magazine for the sake of having a magazine. It has to be solving problems. I needed landscape architects to understand that. And when I say I'm from Pro Landscaper, they would often hang up or,
Right.
I couldn't get to the next level. Even with deck builders, even with outdoor lighting installers, pool companies, it needs to be the gamut for it to really have an impact. We stopped to rebrand going, okay, if we're not going to, license their name and they were fine with it, we left on good terms, what's it going to be? Like we had so many words.
How long did that process take? Was it like a few weeks? Was it like a few months?
So I had a rebranding expert helping me and I was like, I want to do this all in a month. And she was like, are you crazy? We normally do this in 4 to 6 months. And I'm like, I don't have that kind of time. It ultimately did take a couple months because I guess there's so many decisions to make. It's a lot. And the name was harder than you think because it was like, nope, not that one. Because, that sounds like this landscape company
Right.
over here. And that, so it was really more challenging than I thought. And then synced as a mission to bring everybody in step. It really does have that. I've had people call us skink and like all kind of different,
So the audience know. I mean, how long since you did your rebranding? Was it how long you been in existence? I suppose
3.5 years, almost exactly.
Okay.
But we when we rebranded, we were still only in the Southeast, and then we moved into the West, Midwest, and Northeast. Right now, we're distributing about 15,000 printed copies around
great.
the U.S.
That's awesome.
And we have, social media followers around 40,000.
Wow, that's
impressions more than that. But of course, it varies. It always kind of ebbs and flows with our events. A lot of people probably still think that we are just a publication, and that's fine. Our goal is to make a difference in the industry through our more close-knit event. We've decided in 2026 to have 2 events. It's still a lot for our little team. We're a very small team, but events are the exciting bit where magic happens. And, you know, we have a lot of technical discussions that bridge lots of disciplines. We purposely put people from different disciplines in those groups to talk about like mature trees in the landscape. Construction can hurt them, pruning can hurt them, how you plant them can hurt. How can we do this better as an industry? What do we have to look out for? And we have like a forensic arborist that comes along. He can tell you what pruning cut or what event ultimately killed that tree. And it could have happened 10 years ago. You know, it's those kind of insights that really make people think differently about their job. Whatever you do, our goal at a Sync Live event is understanding other disciplines around you is to better think of your role and your company and how you can do things better and maybe even collaborate with some of the companies that you meet to do things better. If they're in your area, maybe it's that they're better in one part of the equation than you are, but you both have the same ethos of doing a high quality job. You could get work from each other. You could collaborate on bigger jobs together. Let's say it's companies across the states. Well, then you have somebody that, you know, thinks like you do in that you're trying to always improve. You're always trying to differentiate your service, maybe. Then you can get tips from them without even being a competitor. And some people call that peer groups. I think that's just friends.
Yeah, well, that's great advice.
Colleagues.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know why, and maybe you can say your thoughts too, but I do feel like in some circles, there's a scarcity mindset about, I'm not telling anybody what I'm doing. I'm going to keep to myself. But like, I feel like our industry, there's so much work out there. There's so many small companies that need help, and they shouldn't be afraid of saying that they need help or that they can't do something as well, you know, and not try to overstretch themselves. We could do a lot together as an industry rather than being, you know, very competitive. And it would really help the stats on 700,000 businesses, and 86% of them have 11 employees or less, or I think it might be 9 employees or less. You know, it's hard to look up when you're running that kind of business. It's hard to take a breath. It's hard to deliver everything at the quality that you maybe want to or that you intend to. But together, we can do a lot more. You know, I always think it's like 1 + 1 = 5.
Right.
I know that doesn't add up for everybody that's listening, but you know, it's it can, just like you and I were doing some brainstorming before this session, we can work in ways that you don't really think about when you're just doing the day to day, because you don't have time to think of, you know, it's like fighting fires constantly. And that's our industry, and that's why I love it. But it's also what sucks you into some maybe bad habits, maybe hiring anybody whenever it would take a bit longer to hire the right person, you know, doing something that you're not an expert at because, oh, it's just a little bit of paving. I've never done paving before, but it's just a little bit. I'll do that. There's a lot of reputation risks in our industry, and those technical chances can hurt companies.
For sure.
So I think together as an industry, we can move mountains. We just want to kind of help pave the way.
You know, I suppose when I think back on my involvement with the Arizona landscape contractors, I was involved in the board as president there, you know, and we had some really cool initiatives. We had the, Janet Weibel was one of the architects there, and she came up with a great book, SLM, Sustainable Landscape Management. You've got some great educational programs through the local ALCA board. Oh, yeah, there you go.
I have Janet's book here. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that, and then, people like, Casey Billingsley bringing in their education piece, and just there's a lot going on within that state, which is great. I don't know how that compares with other states, but, I think there's a couple of challenges that I find is that, the people that attend a lot of those events, could be the decision makers. They don't necessarily have the time then to pass it down to a lot of their team members, which can be challenging and unfortunate because maybe they run the business, they're trying to do too many things. Or if it's bigger companies, then maybe they're sending some of the people into those classes and it's not spreading throughout the rest of the class. So I think there's a lot of great ideas there. It could probably be a little bit more experimentation on trying different things out and sharing that knowledge. So I don't know how you take it from those different ideas to try and get it more on a regional regional or national basis? Because I think there's probably a lot of people in different states doing a lot of different things, but how do we then connect the dots there?
That's really interesting, because what I've found is there used to be contractor associations in all the states, and it's not the case anymore. Arizona, California, I believe Colorado, there are states that it still exists, but there are states without. Yeah, maybe more regional conferences, if you like, would help that. I mean, I'm in Louisiana. We don't have an event even with the Nursery and Landscape Association. We combine with Mississippi and Alabama to have a once a year. But it is more horticulture related. I think there's some hardscaping and some design, but I went to it a few years ago and it was more, at least the show floor was more plant oriented. So it's a challenge we should be sharing more. I mean, one of the things is invasive lists, and every state has a different invasive list. And I'm like, why is this invasive in Mississippi and not Louisiana, or vice versa? Or, but I know it's a challenge because every state is almost like its own country.
That's
and
true.
It's organized differently. So it feels like, it's the U.S. is such a big country.
And I think a lot of it depends on individuals within those states who's passionate about it, how much marketing they do. You're right. There's so many states, and a lot of people will have different mindsets on how to help serve the industry.
Yeah, but there's so much good going around. I think it's just, like I said, we've decided to have more than one event a year because we don't want our events to get any bigger because we lose the connection between the attendees. And so that's why we've decided to start having more events. And I'm excited to attend your event in July and do more of that cross attending. And the more we can meet more people, all of us, the more well-rounded we all are. It'll give us content for our magazines. It will maybe bring some ideas to your events too. I mean,
absolutely.
We're all better sharing. So, yeah.
100%.
Let's take a minute to thank our sponsors. Urcher is a life brand born from grit, founded by Zach Strausser. The mission is clear: to raise $1 million for the trades by supporting vocational training across North America. Urcher makes tough, smart gear built for landscaping and snow professionals who work hard outside every day in all conditions. Their apparel puts safety first, helps crews look sharp, and honors the pride in their craft. Every purchase has purpose, fueling training programs and building a resilient workforce. Urcher isn't just workwear, it's a culture of respect, resilience, and results. When you contact Urcher, mention Wilson360 and Zach and his team will take well care of you.
I mean, does that tie in with your vision? If there is almost like a lack of collaboration between the states, everybody's sort of somewhat working in the silos, is that what you see as your vision, as the magazine being able to start pull those ideas and have people like Janet and other people trying different things to be able to spread that word?
Janet's a great example. We've been sending her our publication for a while, and I reached out to her out of the blue. I mean, I try to connect with most people that we're sending the publication to, but it's, again, kind of a side job, and I reached out to her and said, hey, I hope you're enjoying the publication. And she was like, I've been meaning to reach out to you. So we had a call. I love Janet. I love what she's doing. This book, I know she's written other ones. This is Landscape Construction for Urban Landscape Sustainability.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, I didn't know this existed. This is an amazing resource. We want to help you spread the word about it. And I said, oh, are these new products something interesting? And she was like, I didn't know about it. And I was like, well, I know about them because some of the more nature-based solutions have all originated in Europe. And they're just coming over. And it's products I've been using for 20 years. And so I've been introducing her to suppliers that have unique products to solve solutions that weren't in the book that she could introduce conceptually, so people know that these exist, like plantable retaining walls. there's a lot of products that are still been around for 5+ years in the US, but because it's such a big country, some are more, you have to see it to understand it, to then design with it, to then, know about it. And she's been great. She's like, please introduce me to that person, introducing me to that person. So
that's awesome.
She's looking at a next iteration of her textbook to have a lot of those newer products. And it helps, our advertisers, it helps her, it helps students, it's not just for students, this book, it's for anybody in the industry. So I see that our industry is very siloed and probably in different ways in different states, maybe because of the associations or what's, in that state, or maybe it's how much money is in the state too. Florida and California and Texas and the Northeast are probably where a lot of the newest products debut, and the other states will lag behind. But if we can speed up that knowledge of the products and how they're being used in these cities that are embracing the new technologies, it can spread quicker. We can get water soaked into the ground instead of running into the streets, and trees with girdling roots. And, all these technical solutions that are actually undermine our projects, but you don't see them right away. They undermine our projects in 10 years or 20 years. It actually has an impact on our entire industry. Really, the faster we adapt to newer ways of working with hardscaping and nature and the maintenance of all that, the better the outcome's going to be. And it's like companies that I was just talking to Justin White. He's going to be at our event. He was talking about how, switching from gas-powered equipment to battery has been huge, but they didn't know what it would be like until they're getting to the 1 year mark. And they have data and they can actually see what the impact is. And, that's when it becomes powerful, because it's easy to say, oh, just switch. But there's a lot of pain and learning and figuring things out. But then, is he in a better marketplace now? Is he in a better position? Has he elevated the clientele that, so again, we're planning on probably middle of 2026 to give an update on that and what they found after a year of going electric.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that data piece is crucial because it helps in so many ways in terms of customers, your clients, even internally, just being able to know where to make your investments. But I wanted to come back real quick to the point you made, with Janet, that, again, I think back in the days with the Arizona landscape contractors, we rarely talked about products. There was never really any discussion around, what's coming down the pipeline. I think the primary focus was around, at the time, it was around maintenance. How can we get contractors to professionalize the way we trim shrubs or just act more sustainable? And because, again, we had a lot of professional companies there, but there was also a lot of contractors who were doing residential stuff and just pruning things terribly. So I think that was the focus at the time. But there was very little discussion around the product. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there as you talk about.
Like porcelain paving. We've been laying it in the UK for 20 years. In Italy and France, a lot longer than that.
Right.
And in the States, it still surprises me that a lot of people are not using porcelain as an option. I'm not saying anything should be used 100%. I think it has to, fit the project, the budget, the application. The concrete pavers have a place, the porcelain pavers, the natural stone, everything has a place and a project to fit. But it's surprising how few and even high-end design and build companies aren't using it yet. And so I find that kind of surprising because it's a game-changing product. It's not for everybody. It's not for every project, but it is a game-changing product. And now we're able to cut it better than we could. Like I remember we would design a lot of curves for the company in Scotland and like curvy paths and porcelain paving and like, no, we have to tip it off somewhere to get it cut. And like,
right.
That's how it started. You couldn't cut porcelain on site without it not looking very professional, so you'd have to get it cut in the shop. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's too much hassle.
So now it's changed. There's new techniques becoming available.
Yeah, there's a lot more tools to cut it and cut it on site well. So again, game changing. There's also a product where they've bonded porcelain onto a concrete. I call it lock block, and I know that's a British term, but is it block paving that you call it here in the
Yeah.
States? So block paving, but then they've capped it and they bonded it to porcelain. So the top's porcelain. So then you're getting the durability and the slip resistance from the porcelain on top, but still the ease of installation with the block paving. So again, which I thought, gosh, that is a great product for the US because there's so many contractors that specialize only in the block paving. It's a big jump to go to bonded porcelain when it's a whole different methodology of attaching and laying and everything. So there's a lot of exciting products. And I think that sometimes the product means that you can now design differently. That to me is huge because it's not just here's a different type of walling. It's that, this can do sharp curves, or you can have plants in it. And it's not impermeable. It doesn't stop the water. It doesn't need as big of a foundation. It doesn't need the drainage. It starts to change the cost of the project, but it also allows you to totally rethink what you're planning to do in the first place.
I love that.
And that's where the big changes come. And I think permeable hardscaping, whether that's walls, plantable walls or ground, is really the future because we're, I don't know if you've read about in Tehran, in Iran, they're running out of water. Like they might have to evacuate the city.
I hadn't heard of that.
Because they're running out of water. We are running out of water, even in places that would surprise you. Like what surprised me is moving back here and talking to, landscape architects and just projects going on here. And like Louisiana, one of the wettest states, is depleting its freshwater aquifers faster than we're replenishing them.
Was that right? Wow.
We're not in Arizona. We're not in California, and we're still doing it. I mean, in fact, none of the drinking water in New Orleans comes from an aquifer. It comes from the Mississippi River.
Was that right? Wow.
And I only found that out recently.
That's crazy.
And you go, oh my goodness, rainwater is free, and we just need to harness it through our designs, and it can save a lot of money, save our drinking water for the future. And I'm getting all save the planet, but it's drinking water. We all need this. And I know that states like Arizona will feel that. They'll understand it more than a lot of the other states. But when it's happening in a wet state like Louisiana,
that's true. Yeah, good point.
I think it's probably happening everywhere. And, we did a project feature in Oregon called Blossoms, where in Portland, you have to show the city that your design, where the rain falls, you're capturing it. And so they started construction and they had a huge flooding event, and they used that to their advantage to help kind of redesign the landscaping to make it. I mean, it is beautiful. We named the article, Can Stormwater Management Be Sexy? Because you wouldn't think of it as a stormwater project. It is so beautiful. So it can be aesthetically pleasing and so functional. That's a new way of thinking of the landscape. There's a lot of products that can help you do that now that didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. And so not only do we need those kind of products, but they're there. It's just learning about them and how to implementing. Yeah.
Angelique, I know we're getting close to wrapping up time here. How can people learn more about SYNKD, about all your vision, where your company's going? What's the best way for them to learn more?
I love meeting people. I'm more of a one-to-one person, so call me or email me, set up a meeting. You can reach me at Angelique at SYNKD, SYNKD.io. But you can also go on our website, which is sync.io. There's contact submission, that you can put in there, reach out to. You can come to an event. We're having multiple events a year. If you want one in your city, let us know. We're open to ideas. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find our company on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We have a lot of our podcasts on YouTube, some interesting ones that we've just posted, and hopefully get you on there too sometime, Robert.
Absolutely.
So, please reach out to myself, Tom. We're the main 2 people in the company. We also have some other freelancers, but we'd welcome calls, emails, LinkedIn requests, all of that. So keep in
Cool.
touch.
Thank you, Angelique. Appreciate your knowledge share. Appreciate everything you do for the industry, and I look forward to seeing you at one of your events.
Awesome. Thanks, Robert.
Okay,
Talk
thank
to you
you.
soon. Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Commercial Landscaper podcast. I hope you're walking away with some great nuggets that you can immediately apply to your business, whether you're in leadership, operations, or you just want to show up every day with that Iron Man mindset. Remember, growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens with intentional moves, bold conversations, and surround yourself with the right people. If you found value today, subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with others. And again, don't forget to check out wilson-360.com. We have digital courses from account management, operational excellence, leadership development, or some of the other coaching packages we offer. Anyway, huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you very much. And I'll leave with this. Have a pure, dead, brilliant day.